So, very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Buddhist Mahavihara's Dhamma series. So we have come back, I think after about almost a month. The whole of April, we almost didn't have any talks. We are very fortunate today, this morning, to have with us Bhante Prof Yasassi from Sri Lanka, who will be here for the Vesak period, and he'll be assisting us during Vesak as well as conducting another 1 or 2 talks here at the Buddhist Mahavihara. Let me read Bhante's profile. Bhante is actually not somebody who's new. He's been here before. I think he's been here 2 years ago, I think. Also coming for Vesak and helping us during Vesak. And so Bhante Yasassi is actually a professor of Buddhist civilization at the Department of Pali and Buddhist Studies at the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura in Sri Lanka. Coincidentally, I think Bhante is the youngest professor in Sri Lanka at the moment, if I'm not wrong. He obtained his BA honors in Buddhist civilization with a first class honors and also a PhD from the same university, which is the University of Jayawardhanapura. He has also successfully completed 2 Masters of Arts in Buddhist Studies from the University of Kelaniya and the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. He is the founder and director of the International Buddhist Research Center and co-secretary of the Sri Lanka Association of Buddhist Studies in Sri Lanka. Bhante Professor Yasassi shares his knowledge also as a visiting lecturer in local and international universities, such as the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka, the University of Kelaniya, and the Buddhist and Pali College of Singapore. As a scholar in Buddhist studies, he has authored several books and editions. He has also authored a number of indexed and referred journal articles, research articles, and has presented research papers at national and international conferences. Currently, he is conducting lectures, Dhamma talks, and public orations, both locally and internationally. So we're actually very fortunate, as I mentioned, to have Bhante here this morning to speak to us about the Buddhist way of managing conflicts. So without much ado, I'd like to invite Bhante to start this morning's Dhamma sharing. Bhante.
Say sadhu 3 times. Very good morning, all of you. Today, very happy to be here to conduct a Dhamma talk after 2 years in commemoration of the Buddha's 3 major events which we commemorate in the Vesak. So you all are welcome to Buddhist Mahavihara Dhamma series as well as today's talk. Today we are going to talk about one of the very important and timely discusses topic, which is called conflicts resolution. We all know that this is a kind of upcoming issue where we can see throughout the world. Psychologically, we face different kinds of conflicts by ourselves. And materially, we face different kinds of conflicts. So, what we are going to discuss through this Dhamma talk is how to apply Buddhist teachings, the Buddha's advices, to control conflict and conflict resolutions. So why we are talking about needs of conflict resolution? As you know, sometimes we ourselves face certain issues due to the conflicts made by others. Otherwise, we face that because of our behavior, our thought patterns, verbally what we are talking, others are affected and they become victims due to our conflicts. Therefore, it is very important to identify why we all are suffered and why we all are becoming victims because of the conflicts that we ourselves perform and because of the others perform. Therefore, the identification of those strategies that the Buddha has pointed out is very important to maintain our life peacefully, happily and harmoniously. So that is why this Dhamma talk, the title of the Dhamma talk is very timely important to our day-to-day life. As we know, conflicts can be arisen in different ways. You can see physically we can see how people are quarreling and how people are making conflicts. On the other hand, verbally, because of our words, how we are making conflicts because of our words, and since our mouth is not controlled, we make conflicts with others. So that is one of the major reasons for arising conflicts according to the Buddha's teachings. I will explain them in detail later. And psychologically, mentally, we are conflicting with ourselves, our mind. Normally, sometimes when we are not able to control our mind, we create conflicts within ourselves. We corrupt our inner peace by doing certain conflicts within our mind. So therefore, conflicts can be identified. They can happen in different ways, as you see. So what is conflict? As we know, by looking at the today's world, conflicts are haunted throughout the world today in different ways. Conflicts, tension, turmoil, and different kinds of issues can be identified throughout the world based on different stratifications. As we know, we try to make some divisions and try to maintain stratifications based on gender, ethnicity, race, religion, politics, ecology, even the ideology. Based on these causes, these reasons, we try to make conflicts. On the other hand, by the present context today, there is a damage for humanity. There is a big damage for humanity because of these conflicts and related issues. People cannot identify, sometimes they cannot identify who is my mother or who is my father. And also they cannot identify their siblings and nearest and dearest people. And with neighbors, they make quarrels and conflicts, they create conflicts. So therefore, it has become major threat for humanity by the present context. On the other hand, some parts of the world we can see that certain conflicts have been originated based on the religion. So basically say that religion is what our mind and what creates peace in the society, right? Even though we consider that religion leads us to be happy, peace in our mind as well as throughout the world, due to the religious fundamentalism, some conflicts have been originated throughout the world. So therefore, it has become a major issue where we can see which has been spread throughout the world today. So this is timely important to find out solutions, how to overcome conflicts and how to maintain conflict resolution throughout the world. As far as concerning the modern psychological ideas, conflicts can be identified, can be classified into two: behavioral or social conflicts and psychological conflicts. So that having a main, clear idea on how conflicts are originated, this is very important. So sometimes this looks like teaching a lesson, right? Because Dhamma discussion and Dhamma teaching is nothing but teaching. So it is not like saying something in different ways, right? So the listeners should have an awareness by the completion of the Dhamma talk on the relevant topic. That is what the Buddha pointed out: Adi Kalyanang, Madhye Kalyanang, Pariyosana Kalyanang, Sattang, Sabhyanjanang, Kevala Paripunna. These 6 words. So the Dhamma, when delivering Dhamma, when teaching Dhamma, it should be very clear at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. And it should be meaningful. There should have something to bring when you go out. Otherwise, it is useless. That is why through the Dhamma talks, I try to give something, knowledge also. That is very important. So accordingly, we can find out behavioral or social conflicts in 4 ways. Intrapersonal conflicts. Intrapersonal conflicts are originated within oneself, right? Within oneself. So I myself create conflicts, and physically, psychologically, verbally. So those are called intrapersonal conflicts within oneself. Then interpersonal conflicts. So that can happen involving 2 or more people. Sometimes there are so many complaints when we are talking with some people. Some wives say that my husband always quarrels with me. He made certain, he tried to create quarrels and fight. They are domestic violence based conflicts, right? And some siblings, they always try to pick quarrels each other, right? Those are some kind of interpersonal conflicts. Even in the society, there are certain issues like that. Then intra-group conflicts within a group holding different ideologies, they try to create conflicts. And intergroup conflicts, in such a situation involving 2 or more groups of people, based on different ideologies, based on religion or the race, caste, creed, gender, or whatever the stratification, they try to create intergroup conflicts like terrorism. They always based on such kind of stratification and their own identity, based on that they will create. And psychological conflicts are totally related to human mind. So that is what Buddha has pointed out. Basically, conflicts are a kind of psychological basis in Buddhism. It is not based on the behavioral or social conflict. All are psychological. Then they are turning into, after creating psychological conflicts, they direct towards behavioral and social conflicts accordingly. So we will discuss them in detail based on so many Buddhist discourses. So let me pay your attention to Buddhist view on conflicts. How we can identify conflicts in Pali canonical text. You know, there are so many discourses that the Buddha has pointed out the relevant terms related to conflicts. One is called kalaha. You know the word kalaha, right? Kalaha means contention. Then viggaha. Another Pali term used to denote conflict is called viggaha, means disputes. The real Pali term is disputes. Another one, vivada. Vivada, debate. And another one is called ghattana. Another Pali term, ghattana. Ghattana means directly say that conflicts. We call in Sinhala gatum. Conflicts, ghattana Pali term. Why in different places in Pali canonical text, Buddha has elaborated how the usage of these different words in different context based on different causes. That is why identification of these four words, kalaha, viggaha, vivada, ghattana, are used different ways in Pali canonical texts. On the other hand, once Buddha said in Samyutta Nikaya, nahang bhikkhave lokena vivadami lokova maya vivadati. Right? Once Buddha said that he was not in dispute with the world, but the world was in dispute with him. What does it mean? Buddha never tried to attach with the people or society. Buddha never tried to make quarrels or create disputes with the society, but the society tried to make disputes with him based on their ideologies. Right? That is the nature of the Buddha. This emphasizes that Buddha never tried to make any kind of contentions, disputes, debates or conflicts. There is no place with the Buddha on any kind of place has not given by the Buddha so for the conflicts or such kind of issues. So then let me introduce what are the reasons for causes for conflicts. Why we create conflicts and with others. I can remember there was a person in my village that he had a habit of picking quarrels with others. Always he tried to pick quarrels with others, he create conflicts. If there is no conflict, what happens? He feels that he is not living. Therefore, always try to catch with someone and try to create a kind of, based on whatever the things, try to create quarrels. There are some guys like that, no? They try to, they feel that they are living when they having such kind of problems and such kind of, creating such kind of issues. Yeah, that is the motivational force, right? He or she maintains motivational force. So that is some kind of, there is no specific reason, but the thing is that one who wants to create conflict, they try to use whatever minor reason, sometimes maybe a word uttered by someone else. Based on that, by attaching that, try to maintain those conflicts like that. So I'll explain how Buddhism points out. So according to Buddhism, all the conflicts are psychological, as I pointed out. Now Western management as well as psychology and modern subjects, they try to point out that conflicts are behavioral, right? And material, physical, something like that. But Buddhism, core teachings of Buddhism clearly emphasizes that all the conflicts are psychological and they originate based on mind. Based on mind, then other parts of the body would be activated based on mind. That is why Dhammapada points out, mind precedes thoughts, mind is the chief, they are quality made by mind, and mind is the forerunner, right? Buddha says, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. As you all know the meaning of these stanzas, therefore I am not going to elaborate in detail. But it says that, Manasache paduttena bhasativa karotiva. Manasache paduttena bhasativa karotiva tatonang dukkha manveti chakkangva vahato padang. Right? If with base mind one speaks or acts through that, suffering follows one like a wheel follows ox foot. So Manopubbangama Dhamma, it means mind is a forerunner. So all the contacts, all kind of conflicts are originated through the mind. In the other stanza, again Buddha pointed out, Manasache pasannena bhasativa karotiva, right? If anyone act or speak with the pure mind, what will happen? The result would be tatonang sukha manveti, happiness follows him, right? Just as a shadow which doesn't depart him. So what is here, the most important thing is that Buddhism clearly identify mind or the one's own psychology is the main forerunner to create conflicts. That identification is very important. Sometimes we try to deposit, having made certain conflicts and quarrels, we try to deposit it into others' bags, right? Saying that because of him or her, I create certain issues, and she or him, he always try to pick quarrels or something like that. It is for our easiness. To make our mind happy, we try to put them into others' accounts. But Buddhism says, this is the mind always maintains ourselves, our inner peace, or the conflicts or whatever creates by our own mind. Then why we try to create conflicts? There are two words in Buddhism where we can see in the Māgandhya Sutta of Sutta Nipata. In Sutta Pitaka there is a portion called Sutta Nipata. It consists of a discourse known as Māgandhya Sutta. Right? In this Māgandhya Sutta, there was a Brahmin known as Māgandhya by the time of the Buddha who had a very pretty daughter. So the Brahmin Māgandhya wanted to find out the most handsome youngster to get married to his daughter. Then, while searching everywhere in India, he identified that Buddha is the most handsome person whom has qualified for getting married to his daughter. Then once he approached the Buddha and requested the Buddha to get married to his daughter to the Buddha. Then Buddha said no. Even at the time where three Mara daughters, right? Tanha, Rati, Raga. Even at the time they always tried to attach to him, Buddha refuted. According to Buddhist literature, three Mara daughters, Tanha, Rati, Raga, are the most beautiful ladies sent by the evil one, Mara, so that break in the Buddha's concentration. Buddha said, I did not have any kind of mentality over those three Mara daughters. Then what happens? What is the use of your daughter? In that situation, Māgandhya, the Brahmin says, why you are not having such kind of temptations in your mind, desire? Then the Buddha said, Sanyancha dittincha ye aggahesung te ghattayanta vicharanti loke. Vicharanti, the Pali term vicharanti means they behave in the world. Ghattayanta means by creating conflicts, right? By creating conflicts, people are living in the world. Because of what? Sanyancha dittincha. Sanya means perceptions. Ditti means views. So the main reason, two major reasons for the arising of conflicts are perceptions and views, according to the Buddha. Sanyancha dittincha ye aggahesum. Whoever holds, maintains perceptions and views, they live in the world with such kind of conflicts. What are the perfections? Perfections are certain signs or marks that we identify as good or bad, beauty or not, whatever it is, right? So we try to make certain objects as beautiful, pleasant or unpleasant, beautiful or not like that. They are the perceptions. They are the mental ideas that we create our mind by looking at someone or something. That is the general nature of the human beings, right? When we see something, we make judgments over them, saying that it is very beautiful, she is very pretty, he is very handsome, something like that. They are the perceptions, right? Based on that, we try to create certain conflicts within ourselves, and then we spread it into the others. That is the nature, perceptions. Buddha said that there is no any beauty within objects. So where is the beauty? It is a kind of perception that we create in our mind. That is why one who is beauty to me is not beauty to another, right? If there is no such a diverse way of thinking, what will happen? Everyone will like to only one person or one girl or one boy, right? Why? It is a kind of framework that has been created by the universe. Nothing. So the Buddha says beauty is so those perceptions are not available in anything else. They are created by ourselves in our mind. Based on the human thought patterns, we judge, we make judgments over them. So by holding those perfections, people try to create conflicts within and without. On the other hand, second point says the views. Sanyancha dittincha. Ditti means views. What are the views? Basically, Buddha says that while thinking of I, sakkaya ditti, I, my and myself. Normally, people always try to think like that, I, my and myself, right? That is the nature of the sakkaya ditti. Then one who is thinking like that always try to create those things according to the Magandhya Sutta of Sutta Nipata. So there are two major forces for the origin of the conflicts accordingly, perceptions and views. So we have to be identified them. Another one of the most powerful and most important discourse with regard to the conflict resolution is called Kalaha Vivada Sutta. Hope that you remind Kalaha Vivada, two words that I have pointed out in the beginning. Kalaha Vivada Sutta, the discourse on quarrels and disputes. Once a person approached the Buddha, then he raised a question from the Buddha. What was the question? From where have there arisen quarrels, disputes, lamentations, sorrows, alone with selfishness, conceit and pride, alone with divisiveness? From where have they arisen? Please tell me. It means a person, a guy, approached the Buddha and raised a question from where the quarrels and disputes are arisen, generally say. Right? Then the Buddha mentioned the quarrels are created not because of one point, one factor, right? It is because of certain series of factors. It doesn't happen, unconsciously, according to the Buddha's teachings. So Buddha mentioned that main cause is the things dear in the world, animate and inanimate objects. What is lovely? What are the lovelier things that we are maintaining in our mind? Based on that, most probably quarrels and disputes are arising How it happens? Why we try to make quarrels and conflicts? Because we try to make something ourselves, right? We try to make someone ourselves. With that conscious, we try to create some of the conflicts within among others. Look at here, this is the way that Buddhism has emphasized in Kalahavivada Sutta to identify the process of creating conflicts. The process of creating conflicts. So here you can see the quarrels and disputes, that is the final outcome. Why quarrels and disputes are originated? Because of loud objects, things what is dear. They can be animate or inanimate, right? They can be animate or inanimate. Based on the loud objects, animate or inanimate, we create quarrels and disputes. That is the nature. That is the nature. You know, one example, there are certain childs, when there are 2 or 3 childs in a family who are in the same age or the similar, in such a situation, if a doll is given to 3 of them, what will happen? What will happen? They try to fight or quarrel each other. Why? So that assuring the ownership, right? Why? That is because of the lovely objects that they are interested in. The simple example, that is the nature. Then why we create such a things or the loud objects? Because of the greed or craving. The Buddhism is based on the dependent origination, as you know, right? So everything is classified, analyzes based on the dependent origination. So why we attach to certain animate and inanimate objects as lovely object? Because of the greed or craving. We attach to them. And then why greed or craving arises? Because of the desire. The Pali term chanda. Chanda means desire. Right? With desire, we create craving or greed. We try to make it ourselves. And the Buddha mentioned how desire originates. Buddha said, pleasant and unpleasant, feelings of pleasant and pain, or pleasant and unpleasant. When we see that something pleasant, we create desire. When we see something unpleasant, sometimes we don't try to attach to them. So based on that judgment we create in our mind, desire originates. So what is the reason for identifying pleasant and unpleasant, such a feelings? Because of the phassa. Phassa means contacts. Because of the contacts. Phassa. And what we are contacting is names and forms. Nama Rupa, right? Rupa means the physically out appearance, what we can see with the person or with the animate or inanimate thing. Rupa means psychological Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, those 4 factors, right? Based on that, we create the things like that. So, look at very clearly, Buddhism emphasized, based on the cause and effect theory, dependent origination until happen in quarrels and disputes, what is the process going on. That is very important to identify. So, because of the names and forms, we try to contacts, right? It means the phassa. Because of the contacts, we create psychological ideas, pleasant and unpleasant. We try to give an evaluation to those objects. Then when we feel pleasant or unpleasant, these psychological feelings, then we create desire, chanda. Then when we create desire, then we try to attach those lobha, create lobha. Chanda is something, interested in something. Lobha means trying to attach into what we were interested in. Then based on that, we try to make those things ourselves, and then we try to pick quarrels and disputes so that making those things ours. So this is the process which is mentioned in Kalaha Vivada Sutta, that the causes that led to the origin of quarrels and disputes accordingly. Now look at here. This is entirely a psychological process, right? No physical or the material things are here. So the quarrels and disputes, conflicts are, that is why at the initial stage, at the inception, I have pointed out that Buddhism points out as a psychological process. Okay? So based on our psychological situation, we create our mind into such a situation. On the other hand, there are another discourses where we can see the causes for the conflicts. Now all these are very practical, you can use in your day-to-day life, right? Now look at here. In Chula Vyuha and Mahavyuha Suttas of Sutta Nipata points out the main reason for the horizon of disputes are ideological differences, right? Which is called dogmatic view. Dogmatic view. There are certain individuals who are always trying to maintain dogmatic view as the one's own view is the correct, others are incorrect, right? Buddha said that idhameva manyang, idhameva satchang, mogha manyang. Idhameva satchang, idang eva satchang. This is the only truth. Mogha manyang, others are not truth. Others are false. By holding this view, certain people try to emphasize by making one's own idea a concrete. Then what will happen? Then, based on that dogmatic view, people try to quarrel each other, argue each other. Then the argument would be transformed into a dispute. Dispute would be transformed into a quarrel and finally conflict. So the dogmatic view is another main cause. Sometimes we don't try to be pragmatic, right? We always try to maintain our own view as the right and correct, without a rationale, without any kind of, clear understanding. We try to maintain our own idea as the correct. That is called dogmatic view. There are certain individuals, right, who by showing the sun, he tried to say that this is the moon. Even though others try to aware him that this is the sun, no. Finally, even though he has finally identified that this is the sun, he don't want to be second. Therefore, don't try to understand, don't like to be second, and they don't try to lower down their dogmatic view. That is the nature. Even in our day-to-day life, we have some people, most probably we create quarrels based on those dogmatic views. So therefore, Buddha has mentioned in the two discourses, Chula Vyuha and Mahavyuha, Idhameva Satchang Mogamanyang means the dogmatic view of truth based on different parties claim that they alone have truth while others do not. The Buddha said no. Buddha was a very pragmatic religious teacher. He always tried to respect others' views, others' ideas, right? Then what happened? While respecting others' ideas, others' views, sometimes Buddha changed some of his views maintained by himself. That is how Buddha became not a dogmatic but a pragmatic religious teacher. So even in the Buddha's teaching, the problem was that until people are maintaining dogmatic view, definitely that would be a reason for rising conflicts, intra-conflicts and interpersonal conflicts also. That is another idea maintained. However, this sutta mentions dogmatic view is the major cause for rising of conflicts. Another discourse, this is very important. This is called Arana Vibhanga Sutta, right? Arana Vibhanga Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya. This course has given a very vast explanation of the origin of the conflicts. What is called Arana? Arana Vibhanga. Vibhanga means analysis. Vibhanga means analysis. Arana means a runner. Rana means the war. The Pali term Rana means war or conflict. Arana means the status of non-war, not having a war, or the non-conflicts. Arana. So therefore this discourse is called the Sutta of Analysis on non-war or non-conflicts, Arana Vibhanga. In this sutta, Buddha has clearly emphasized there are 6 ways of arising conflicts. There are 6 ways of arising conflicts. 6 causes. Number 1, one should not pursue sensual pleasure, self-mortification, should avoid 2 extremes, should practice Noble Eightfold Path. Because of the 2 extremes, most probably conflicts are arising. Self-indulgence and self-mortification. Even in the very first sutta delivered by the Buddha, which is called Dhamma Chakkappavattana Sutta, Buddha pointed out, Dve me bhikkhave anta pabbajitena nasevitabba. there are two extremes the monks should avoid. Why these two are considered a cause for the arising of conflicts? Because extremes are a kind of, dogmatic view that people maintain. Self-mortification and self-indulgence. That is what the Buddha pointed out. Annihilationism, and based on that, people try to maintain one's own idea as correct. Therefore, when existing with these two extremes, the person who practices these two extremes, they definitely maintain dogmatic view. Until existing dogmatic view, one cannot avoid those things. Then the Buddha's remedy for the resolution of such a conflict is called practice in Noble Eightfold Path. So those conflicts and problems can be settled down by practice in Noble Eightfold Path. Number 2, Arana Vibhanga Sutta says, one should know what is to extol and what is to disparage. One should know what is to extol and what is to disparage. Knowing both, one should neither extol nor disparage, but should teach only the Dhamma. The reason is, while having a clear-cut understanding on what is extol or what is to disparage, that understanding would clear the path for him to identify the real teaching of the Buddha. Otherwise, cannot. So therefore, Buddha said, as a second point, that is to be originating certain disputes, this second point also should be identified clearly. And third point, one should know how to define pleasure, and knowing that one should pursue pleasure within oneself. That is also very important. One should know how to define pleasure, and knowing that one should pursue pleasure within oneself. Within oneself means it is a kind of mental understanding, psychological understanding by oneself. And the fourth point says, one should not utter covert speech, and one should not utter overt harsh speech. Both should be avoided. Because Buddha has clearly mentioned that most of the conflicts are arising based on our speech, right? Based on our mouth. So the initial stage of the arising of origin of the conflicts are a single word that we utter from our mouth. Then based on that, try to develop that into higher level in different ways, right? So final results would be sometimes a killing. Up to that, certain single word can be elaborated into such a level, right? So therefore, Buddhism clearly emphasized that the language or the words are very influential factor, cause for the arising of conflicts, especially interpersonal conflicts. and intergroup conflicts. So that can happen. Therefore, Buddha said that one should not utter covert speech, which are causing the conflicts. And one should not utter overt, harsh speech. And the fifth one say, one should speak unhurriedly, not hurriedly. This is also very important. Practically saying that when a person, based on the nature of his expressions, hurriedly talking, what will happen? Someone may think that he is talking harsh and based on the voice, right? Then the maintaining calm, quiet and such a very unhurried situation style in communicating by using language is also very important. So we can do use language as a very powerful tool to the resolution of conflicts. So what we are doing is, what we sometimes, based on the nature of our words, how we use the words and the voice, as well as the nature of using words hurriedly, that would be a reason for arising conflicts. That is why Buddha said it has to be reduced, and one should, when a person speaks, that should be unhurriedly, not hurriedly, right? That is also very important. You can see how Buddha has considered very slight things which can happen to create conflicts, and Buddha had advised to avoid those things. So that is, some people say that this is my nature, right? So that making their, to establish their idea and their nature, they try to mention, this is my nature. So the his or her nature for herself or himself, not for others. But the general sense is, we have to be considered those things in deep. Then the sixth point, Buddha said, one should not insist on local language and one should not override normal usage. Local language means, based on the language, so many problems are originated. Local language means one's own language. Sometimes we try to maintain our language, right? So based on language, there are so many problems and issues, conflicts originated throughout the world. Language-based conflicts, right? So Buddha said no. Once there were two monks came from a Brahmin family who was respecting to Vedic language, it means Sanskrit. Having approached the Buddha, Yamelu and Tekula, having approached the Buddha, they requested the Buddha to give permission for them to translate Buddha's teachings into holy Vedic language. It is called Sanskrit. Why? They were still, even though they entered into Sasana as monks, they became monks, they were still in Brahmin consciousness, Vedic consciousness. Therefore, they requested the Buddha to give them permission to translate the Buddha's teachings into their language, because they considered that their language is the best while others are lower. Buddha said no. If you want to learn or identify the Buddha's teachings, you can use your language for understanding. That depends on you. But no need to translate into that language. Why? Otherwise, in such situations, there may arise language-based conflicts. Someone can again ask the same question. Then finally, the Buddha's teachings, based on the Buddha's teaching, another conflict can be arising based on language. That is why Buddha did like that. Understood? So what does this say? Language can create so many problems and issues. Not only the language, the way that we use language, the style, expression, and the way that we use language can be caused for certain disputes and problems. That is why in Arana Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha says, if one needs to avoid conflicts and wars, definitely they have to carry out these 6 points with their understanding. Here there is one very important practice. What is that? First, Buddha said you have to avoid. And second part, Buddha said, then you have to practice. That is just as, 5 precepts, right? 5 precepts, Buddha said, Panatipata, Veramani, Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. So the first part of the precept, Panatipata, Veramani. Veramani means avoiding. That is called Virati. Virati means abstaining from. Then the second part says, Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. It is cultivating, right? So there are both 2 aspects. Even in this Arana Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha has clearly emphasized at the inception, one should avoid this and this. And second part, Buddha said, having avoided, then one should practice this. So this is it means the theoretical part and the practical part, both are included in these teachings. That is very important. Normally, we can see in certain situations only the theoretical things, right? The Buddha is very practical religious teacher. That is why wherever he tried to say a kind of theory, simultaneously he has introduced the practical approach of those things. So even in every Buddha's teachings are the same. So Arana Vibhanga Sutta. Another very interesting discourse is Kama Sutta. Kama Sutta of Sutta Nipata. This sutta mentions that why people create quarrels, disputes and conflicts because of the karma. Karma means pleasure. There are 2 types of pleasures in Buddhism, Kilesa Kama and Vattu Kama. These 2 are very important. Kilesa Kama means subjective sensuality. It means strong desire and attachment to ideologies, concepts and theories. Kilesa Kama, subjective sensuality. People cause quarrels and disputes as well as the conflicts, as we discussed earlier, based on the ideologies, right? And Vattu Kama means objective sensuality. Material things such as wealth and so on. Objective sensuality. So that is what we were talking earlier. Then, how these are some other examples from Sakkapanya Sutta. Sakkapanya Sutta also gives example with regard to the origin of the conflicts based on psychological conditions. Then what is important here is how conflicts can be, the resolution of conflicts. The Buddha's way is very important, where he has pointed out in his very first sutta, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, so that Four Noble Truths can be applied for the conflict resolution. Now there are 4 Pali words here: Pariññeyyang, Pahatabbang, Saccikatabbang, Bhavetabbang. When these words are here heard, you may remind Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, right? So it is, the Pariññeyyang means the problem has to be known or understood. The Buddha's theory is very unique, because in whatever the situations, whatever the conditions, the Four Noble Truth can be applied. That is a theory. That is not for suffering, cause of suffering or whatever, right? Four Noble Truth as a theory, we can apply them into whatever the conditions or whatever the situations. Pariññeyyang means the problem has to be known or understood. The first thing is, you suppose that if you have a conflict, quarrel or dispute in your mind or with some other, then it has to be identified. How it can be identified? We should be aware, we should be able to aware the causes that led to those problems. It means the conflicts. So Buddha never said, once Buddha said that if a person send an arrow, and if he is shocked with that arrow, what has to be done first? Whether the arrow should be found or whether the injured person should be treated. Buddha said, first the injured person should be treated, and secondly the arrow should be found. In the same way, Buddha's way is something very scientific and philosophical. So that is why the problem should be identified. Then Pahatabba, then removing the cause. Having identified the cause for the problem, question or the conflict, then it has to be removed. So the removal should be not the problem, conflict, but the cause for the conflict. We have to address the root. Otherwise, it cannot be removed. Then Saccikatabbang means solution has to be realized. There may be different types of solutions, right? Out of the different options, the most effective, most practical, most important solution should be identified, then that is called Saccikatabbha. Identification of the most practical and most effective solution. And Bhavetabba means the path for leading to the cessation of the problem. Solution has to be practiced. So finally, that has to be practiced. So in conflict resolution, this theory can be applied in every situations. You suppose that if you are having any kind of mental issue, mental problem, or any kind of problem that you are suffering, then you can apply that put into this theory, and then you can search for an answer. So this is a unique theory that the Buddha has preached. Apart from that, loving kindness, practice in loving kindness is another very effective, practice for the conflict resolution. Most probably, since we don't have loving kindness, practice loving kindness, so many issues and quarrels may be originated. The Buddha mentioned, even if you are cut off by bandits using a two-handed saw, you should not have ill will towards them and should continue to feel care for their well-being while maintaining an attitude of loving kindness and a lack of inner hatred. Practically, it is very difficult to practice such a thing, right? But the Bodhisattva practice is the same. So even though we are not able to, we have no capability of coming to that status, it's okay, but we can stop in such some kind of extent, right? It says that in different situations we have to be, we should be able to look at them patience, right? Without making quarrels or conflicts based on ill will. So that is what Buddha has pointed out. So loving kindness is one of the most and the common strategy that can be applied for different issues, different problems and different situations, right? So that is something should be cultivated in our inner peace. And then great compassion, which is related to loving kindness. One who practices loving kindness, they have compassion. So that is another strategy introduced by the Buddha so that maintaining such a conflict resolution. Then there are so many advices given in Dhammapada and some other discourses where we can see how people should try to manage our mentality by thinking the positive ways. Now here you can see these are the causes that we try to create certain issues. He abused me. He struck at me. He overcame me. He robbed me. Right? By thinking of those, inclinations, perceptions, we try to bear ill will towards them. Finally, Buddha said, their hatred is never appeased because of they have created those perceptions in their mind as concrete. Therefore, it has to be those ill will had to be appeased without hatred. It can happen. So the most probably conflicts are originated based on ill will and hatred. So therefore, we should try to maintain our mind in very calm and quiet situation without giving permission to ill will and hatred to be inserted into our mind. And further, Buddha said how we can do reaction by thinking others, some of the things that happen to oneself. The Buddha said, those who bear not ill will towards this, their hatred is surely appeased. So as I mentioned earlier, ill will is one of the most powerful curse that we cultivate in our mind. So it has to be avoided. Apart from that, one of the most prominent Dhammapada discourse, Nahi Verena Verani, Sammantida Kudachanang, Averena cha Sammanti, Esa Dhammo Sanantano, which mentions, not by hatred do hatreds. Cease at any time in this place. They only cease with non-hatred. This truth is surely eternal. So through the non-hatred, hatred can be defeated and we can maintain happy, and we can maintain very pleasure and happy in our mind by maintaining non-hatred, which can be considered the major reason for arising of conflicts within and without. So therefore, Buddha said, so that conflict resolution and maintain our mind happy, peacefully and harmoniously, we should be a very good positive thinker who controls oneself. Right? There is nothing in the universe which cannot be achieved. Right? There is no impossible things in the universe. Look at the picture. Someone can say that it is something impossible for an elephant to be on a ball. But it also can happen. So that what has to be cultivated? He should be able to seize the invisible, feels the intangible and achieves the impossible. So that is the nature of the positive thinker. So one who is controlling oneself, definitely he can maintain one's own peace, happiness and harmony in our mind by avoiding such kind of conflicts and some of the disputes and some other corrupted things that make our samsaric journey a very lawful one. Therefore, with that explanation, I would say, I would like to elaborate. Once the Buddha pointed out, Samagga Hotama Vivadata, stay united and never quarrel. Right? Wherever and whatever the situations we are, we should try to stay united without making conflicts. So that can be the reason for us to be very happy, pleasureful and harmonious samsaric journey. Thank you so much for your patience hearing. Questions?
Regarding Arana Vibhanga Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, as you mentioned about language, that one should not emphasize on local language, which you mentioned about one monk wanted to use Sanskrit as a language for translating the teachings of the Buddha. So is there any such mention, discourses?
Yeah, that is mentioned even in the same Arana Vibhanga Sutta. It says that Yamelu and Tekula, two monks who came from a Brahmin clan, who had entered into Sasana having become monks, in that situation they were still had the conscience of their Brahmanic conscience, by considering that they are the highest and others are lowest or something like that. So that is why they considered that their Vedic language is more holy than the Pali language. That is why in that conscience they wanted to translate the Buddha's teachings into their language. So so that avoiding language, difference and language-based conflicts, Buddha said, it is not no need to translate, but if you want to understand easily, you can use your local language so that easy understanding. So I'll say one example. If I am familiar in Sinhala language, if I try to translate, if I try to write entire Tripitaka only in Sinhala, for my easiness, that is not better, because Pali as a holy and common language, it can be applied for many people, right? The situation, they are also the same.
And another doubt, Bhante, regarding idhamma eva satcham mogamanyam, is in Botha Sutta, Chula Vyuha, and Mahavyu Sutta, both Sutta speaks about it?
Yeah, that is available in both suttas, right? Chula Vyuha and Mahavyuha Sutta, that is a couple of suttas which explains the same idea in a diverse way. So the Mahavyuha Sutta has elaborated what is available in Chula Vyuha Sutta. So both suttas say that the dogmatic weave, and so that explaining that dogmatic weave and its nature and how it influence on the rising of the conflicts, Buddha has elaborated that in both suttas. So the idameva satchang mogamanyang, that is actually not only mentioned in Chula Vyuha and Mahavyuha Sutta, it can be seen in many places in entire Pali Tripitaka. So the basic idea is the one of the dogmatic view maintained by contemporary religious teachers, contemporary philosophers who lived in India, so that emphasizing one's own idea, one's own view as the right. So that is what we can see even in these two suttas.
Okay, Bhante, Moga means what? Moga?
Moga means one of the terms used by the Buddha so that blaming people, like, in Buddhism, Buddha did not use, very harsh words like the very general words that we are using today, right? We call the most powerful harsh word used by the Buddha is Mogha Purisa. Mogha means the foolish man.
Okay.
That is the meaning, foolish.
Okay.
So rather than that, there is no wicked word that the Buddha used. So the Mogha Manyang means others are wrong, foolish, like that. That idea.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you for the very good sharing. Looking forward for the slides. Actually, I just want to know, like, I work in a corporate world. Over there, I found that when I have conflict, usually it's because I'm trying to defend myself. Because sometimes it's a very dog-eat-dog world. So people like to steal credit after you do all the hard work. Like, they like to steal and call themselves doing that work. That's number one. But I said, you have the mindset of people abuse me, rob me. So I know where it's getting. But we are actually a lot trying to defend ourselves and our work. Number two, so a lot of people stealing credit lah. In a way, they already break the precept lah of not stealing. That number one. Number two is they like to, when things go wrong, they like to point fingers and blame, make you the scapegoat. So oftentimes I notice, because I'm a minority group in a majority community where I work, I'm a minority ethnic. So I found that I'm an easy target also. Yeah, like they want to blame. So I was oftentimes trying to defend myself. So I found that's how conflict occur. How do I get out of this in whatever approach you share, the 4 noble truth, loving kindness? How do I come out from this situation? Because sometimes it's not the people, sometimes it's the system, it pits one to the other. The system makes people fight. The system is not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we get out of a situation where when there's something go wrong, they need to blame someone. We want to prevent from being blamed. Yeah. Number two, I am serious by nature. So sometimes I saw just now, you said one of the things, we need to, our expression, our pace, right? A few things just now, the cost. So how, you see, I have a certain serious look. I don't smile so much. Sometimes I look angry, sometimes I look a bit depressed, you know. What should I do? I can't do surgery lah. This face is this face. So what can I do? But I can't smile also, you know, like sometimes if there's something ongoing, like heated situation, I cannot smile.
Why?
There's anger lah. You know.
The thing is
So
that, you know, how we manage, right?
Yeah.
How we manage, you know, our, for my personal experience, even though I have hundreds of works to be completed, I am always smiling faces. Sometimes there are very, you know, so many things to do today. There are so many duties to perform. But we have maximum capacity for everyone. We cannot avoid that. That is unique for you and me and the others, right? So even though we are in corporate or whatever the world, even in the underworld, we have some limitation, limited capacity to the way that we can perform our things, and so we cannot, we have to do based on that. Sometimes we try to be very serious. So being serious is harmful for ourselves. In different situations, like, you know, as a manager or whoever whatever the position you are holding, if you take that it as very serious in comparison with others, that would be a kind of, you know, damage to us. Then the Buddha's way, the moderate way, is the most important way that we can practice. Once, you know, there was a monk by the time of the Buddha known as, you know, that monk was coming from, you know, a family from you know, playing flute or something like that. One of the musical instrument, right? Then, while he became a monk, he wanted to attain enlightenment, even at least understanding one status of the Nibbanic path, or the Sotapanna or Sakadagami or whatever status. Then he tried, just after becoming a monk, he tried to day and night by practicing meditation, right? One the monk is known as Sona, tried to practice meditation day and night so that achieving one goal as soon as possible. Now, but he was failure to achieve at least the Sotapanna status. Then he was frustrated. Having frustrated, he approached the Buddha and said that the Buddha, I cannot stay in the monastery. Having you know, lost everything, I became a monk so that attaining enlightenment, even at least to come to one status, but I was not, still I could not achieve that. So Lord, I will go home and I will practice my earlier practices, something like that. With that frustrated mind, he went. The Buddha addressed that monk, saying that Buddha raised a counter question. Sona, what was the job that you did in earlier before becoming a monk? Buddha said that, he said that, I will play a kind of, you know, musical instrument. That was my job. Then the Buddha said, when you wanted to, you know, fine tune that instrument, how you can maintain, whether the strings of the instrument would be hold in tight or keep it in very simply. The Buddha, the person, the Sona said that I will always try to maintain middle way. If they are maintaining tight, it is not melodiously, it doesn't create melody, a very sweet melody. If it is keeping very, light, without making such a very simple way, it also cannot create very good melody. Then I always try to maintain it in moderate way. The Buddha said that is the way we have to practice. In whatever the situations, we have to be very, moderate in our work, in our day-to-day work. Even you, as I mentioned earlier, we all have different capacities. We make certain responsibilities, accountabilities in different ways. And some managers would be very, serious, while others are careless. So both are working, both are having their salary, and they do their own extent what they can dedicate, right? So the person who has done so much, dedicated so much, would be sometimes would be frustrated because of the different situations as you mentioned, while the other person who is working careless for some extent, but he maintain the personal life and the professional life in some extent. So what would be the good? For my explanation, for my understanding, it is, I am not say that you should be careful or careless or whatever thing. So we have to identify our capacity, our strength, and without making any mental problem with much dedicating and much being accountable, better to maintain everything soft way in moderate way. So you have to maintain your mindset like that. So that can be the way, that is the way for being happy. So we all are live in a very short period, right? We don't have hundreds of years. So within that short period, we are expecting to be happy and peace. That is the main thing we need to maintain. So therefore, take everything easy. Don't take everything very serious.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Let's put our palms together and thank Bhante Yasassi, Professor Yasassi, for a wonderful sharing. Sadhu, sadhu,
Okay.
sadhu.
Then we will share the merits that we accumulated to the deities, the gods, and the departed ones from those who participated in this Dhamma talk, Dhamma sharing. Just remind all the departed ones that who are expecting for rejoicing the merits from you, and the deities, may all the divine beings, departed ones, free from all the calamities, and may they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanang. Abhivadana silissa niccang vaddapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ආයුරාරෝග්‍ය සම්පatti සග්ග සම්පatti මේවච අතෝ නිබ්බාන සම්පatti ඉමිනාතේ සමිජ්ජතු සාදු සාදු සාදු